Hi everybody, sorry for the false start. I am new to YouTube Live. I've done a few tests. I'm blown away that you guys, YouTube community, actually are supporting this channel and want to talk about homelessness. It's just amazing. So, thought I would start this live stream by, let me set up a couple of things here. Bear with me. I'm still learning how to do all this stuff. So, and it is live. Oh my gosh. Gasp, gasp, gasp. Yeah. So we are live. We are live. Cool. So the last live stream, which was a test, one of the people in chat asked that I tell my story. Hey, Thomas, how's the audio? How's the picture, everybody? I am really testing the settings. And hey, Charlie. Oh my gosh, Charlie is homeless in Pasadena. I got to take him out to dinner with a group of people from our homeless support group. And Thomas is an Invisible People board member. So I have a board member and a homeless person watching. So I better be on my best behavior. So, I was asked the last time I tested this to tell a little bit about my story. So I moved to Los Angeles in 1987, really to seek fame and fortune like most people. I ended up working in the television industry. Most of my youth, I made my living playing music. I ended up working in the television industry, but I was wasted. I mean, from 14 years old on, I used to sell drugs, do drugs, play music, wasted, you know, the whole thing. And I was a very high-functioning alcoholic. So just natural progression. I mean, there's more of this story as I do more live streams. We'll do more of this. But I ended up homeless on Hollywood Boulevard. I literally sold pictures of my pet iguana to tourists to survive. And then it took me a while to get off the streets. And I ended up in a shelter that wasn't really a great shelter. I mean, by not great, I mean it was actually eventually shut down by the FBI. They literally farmed homeless people out as slave labor. And, you know, it was just a horrible, horrible situation. And, but I started to get some semblance of sobriety. And then I transitioned to, hey, Tommy, I'm glad you're here. And I don't know how to pronounce your name from Asia, but glad you're here. In my father's kitchen. Oh my gosh, is John watching? John, how are you? You're the king of live feeds. So I'm going to get to all the questions in a second. We'll have an interactive conversation. But people asked about my story, so I wanted to share a little bit. So then I ended up in a church shelter. And I lived there for 7 years. And there's a lot of good and a lot of bad, and that's just life. So I'm grateful for, you know, the clothes and the room and everything that was provided for me. What wasn't really great is often faith-based shelters, not all of them, but most of them really put you on this path of ministry. You get 2 Bible studies a day, and you have to, you know, sweep floors and its structure, and when the structure is gone, a lot of people go back to homelessness. I mean, again, there's some great faith-based programs, but majority of them are using basic needs like food and shelter to coerce people into religion. I believe that's wrong. Anyways, I ended up living in this shelter, in this faith-based shelter, for 7 years. Now, for the first year, I was in their discipleship program. For the second year, I was like kind of staff, but not. I received $25 a week, $100 a month. And that lasts for 4 years. I made $100 a month. I worked 6 days a week. Eventually, I ended up getting where I was, on staff and getting enough income so that I could move out. Now, staff people that weren't homeless were brought in and paid, a lower than average salary, but above what homeless people were being paid. Since we were homeless, we weren't paid enough. Anyways, the big thing about faith-based programs is that they don't really help you get your life back on track. And so, literally, I would ask them, I would say, when can I get my life back? When can I get a car? When can I start dating, get married, vacation in Hawaii like normal people? And they'd say, Jesus never stops discipling you, brother. So I took it upon myself, got on Monster.com, ended up in working in television ministry. And I call that the dark side. Now, it was just a natural progression because I worked in television, had a great job in television syndication, Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, blah, blah, blah. And now I lived in a church for 7 years, so my resume had this big, long hole. And now the next progression was Christian television. So I went from literally making, $100 a month to $30,000 a year to $70,000 a year, and I moved to Columbus, Ohio, and now I'm on this path of Christian broadcasting producer. And again, in life there's a lot of good and bad. I ended up going to Southern Sudan a couple of times, met a lot of great people, really learned about response marketing, and so fast forward, I ended up being, communications director, executive pastor of a large church in St. Louis. Economy tanked, lost everything again, except my sobriety. And I relocated back to Los Angeles. Well, I should say I got a job in Los Angeles at the Foursquare denomination, which I took very seriously, both spiritually and professionally, because here I was, the communications manager, the marketing manager for 55,000 churches, and I took that very seriously. But in 3 months, they had to lay me off. Last in, first out. So the Foursquare denomination was really great. Even though I was there for just 3 months, they gave me a really neat severance package. But again, it was a very dark time. Didn't know what was going on. But while I was in Brad Abair, now Brad Abair was probably the reason that I took the job. He is just a marketing genius, a wonderful person. He started churchmarketingsucks.com, and just amazing. I had churchmarketingstinks.com if you didn't like the word sucks. And, it was just, Brad was just, I just wanted to work with him. So in his office, he had a coffee table book called Finding Grace, of black and white pictures of homeless people. And it was an amazing book. And, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I could do this with video. So then, it's not really directly connected, but then Brad had to lay me off and I had the time. So here I'm back in Los Angeles. My house is going into foreclosure. I can't get a job to save my life. Right around 19 months of unemployment, not consecutive. I'd get a job, get laid off, get a job, get laid off. I grabbed the camera and I went out and I started interviewing homeless people. And that has changed my life. It's changed a lot of other people's lives. And I am so grateful for all of you that support this channel. I mean, one of the miracles, well, I'm going to talk really quick about 2 miracles, and I'll answer questions about my story. And forget, oh my God, I'm like nervous. It's the first time we did some tests about YouTube Live. I was testing the equipment, but this is my first official YouTube Live, and I'm nervous. I only, told chunks of the story. And, so Katie, who is one of the people that just interviewed in Winnipeg, she's a 22-year-old girl. The community didn't even know she existed. They didn't even know she existed. And because of Invisible People, now there's a small team of people wrapped around her working to get her off the streets. That's just amazing. The other one is, and I don't have the family's permission to share this yet, but a friend of mine who lives in Canada, she DMs me and says, she private messaged me and says, that video you did in such and such time, well, that's my cousin. And the next day she sends me a photo of this formerly homeless person, or, the person that I interviewed, on a couch with a family all looking nice and clean. And it turns out the family found him on this YouTube channel that you're all watching right now, and went and, helped them get off the streets, and now they're all reconnected. And it just happens to be the cousin of a friend of mine. Just amazing. So today I thought I wanted to address a couple of things, and as we bump and grind into this, I'm going to try to be regular on live streams, and I'm going to try to, I'm going to pick some news articles every week and hit some topics. And if you guys have some news articles you want to send to me, post them in the comments here, or hit me up at Hardly Normal on Twitter, and we'll every week try to, discuss some of these topics up in the open. So let me go through. Hey, thanks. I'm going to read a couple of comments. Thanks, Tommy, for the encouragement. Sometimes people that have less give more. That is so true. There's actually studies that show the majority of people that donate to poverty, to helping other people, are in lower income brackets. The people that make $200,000 a year or more, they want to donate to get a library named after them. They don't necessarily give to helping the poor. Pira, you're the second person that says I look like James Hadfield. Sorry, I'm not. Tommy, I think I saw you do a super chat in there. Thank you very much. Your donation is greatly appreciated. I'm doing this really to educate people, and I thought maybe we could have an interactive conversation. And one of the things that is really on my heart, you'll see, I just posted a video of Share, and it's about 500 people. It's probably more around 600. So the government says 400. The homeless people are saying 1,000, 1,500. The truth is probably right there in the middle. It is the biggest homeless camp that I've ever walked into. It's by Angel Stadium in Anaheim. And what's really interesting, or I think really sad, is the reason that it's grown is in Orange County, 33 cities. There's 34 cities in Orange County, but 33 have made homelessness or some kind of homelessness, panhandling, sit and lie on the ground or different things. I know in one community in Florida, they made it illegal to carry a blanket. I know in some communities in California, it's illegal to smoke outside. And they say that's a public thing, to make it, clean air for everybody. But the people that are getting fined, and it's $75, is the homeless people. They use it to ticket people. But anyways, 33, Tommy, you're from Anaheim Hills. That's kind of right where I'm talking about. And that's where all the fires were recently, too. Hope you are okay. So 33 cities in Orange County make homelessness illegal. The 34th doesn't or didn't. And people got to go somewhere, so they ended up at the Santa Ana River Trail. And it's unbelievable. And so here's the thing, that 11,000 people. So my heart's broken because, I went there and I interviewed Joseph about 2 weeks ago. His video is up. I interviewed Cher, whose video I put up this morning. Please go and watch and share it. I mean, Cher was disabled and has no place else to go. And she talks about how she was having a seizure on the ground, and one of the bikers came up and was yelling, "Get out of my way," doesn't even stop and help. Just horrible. And then what really got me today, tags on YouTube, you start seeing all these different videos. So all these videos of bike riders who have GoPros on their helmets started coming up in my YouTube, and in the suggested videos. So I started watching a few of them, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, 11,000 people signed a petition so that these 500, 600 people in Anaheim who have no place else to go are going to be pushed out of where they are. Now, according to what I've been reading, that's going to start tomorrow. Friday, they're going to start enforcing it. Now, whether that actually happens or not, I don't know. I'm going to show one of the news articles that I and again, I'm just learning, this is fresh, brand new news article. And God, I love how the ads, you got homelessness, an article about homelessness, and then, they're trying to pitch home loan rates, for $225,000, select a home loan and get 3.4% interest. Anyways, Orange County plans crackdown on homeless camps in the Santa Ana River, fearing the area is becoming Skid Row. I mean, it is becoming Skid Row, and it's been Skid Row for a while, and we have to do something about it. Give me a second here while I get okay. Still trying to figure this out. As these live streams go, please, I'll take all the tips you can get, and we'll make it better. So here's all these people with no place to go. And I'm highlighting Anaheim in Orange County, but you pick pretty much any city right now, major cities more than rural cities, but I'm seeing tents everywhere I travel. Criminalization is getting worse, and it's heartbreaking. So, thought I'd have a discussion about that. It's really one of the comments that I grabbed. Somebody did a drone video. Now it wasn't somebody, I'm looking at the wrong, so it wasn't somebody that is friendly to homeless services, did a drone video, and in the comments, I'm paraphrasing, somebody wrote, what I recommend is going at night and shooting one person, waiting a couple of days, and going and shooting another person and repeating. Now, that's kind of on the extreme, but people really think this stuff. People hate homelessness. And then somebody said, well, that's not how the majority of people actually think. But if you look at Orange County, and I can tell you this because I lived in Los Angeles for 30 years, if you look at Orange County, they have huge wealth. There's a huge population of people. There's a huge population of homeless people, but there's no shelter beds. There's very few shelter beds. There's very few housing opportunities. So, the argument was that people really don't think this stuff. And they do. Oh my gosh, they do. So one of the comments I get on YouTube a lot, and people, I'm sure, just think that is, get a job. They blame homelessness on the person, and they, say, oh my gosh, it's their fault. They can just get a job. Well, do you know anybody that's hiring homeless people and then offering them a living wage where they can actually afford an apartment? Do you know anybody? I don't. And, in all reality, in several years, trucks are going to drive themselves, and there's more truckers than any other profession. We're going to see massive job loss. The idea of get a job is just ridiculous. Plus, it's the cause of homelessness is lack of affordable housing, childhood trauma, lack of a living wage. Relationships play a big part. I don't hear anybody talk about this, but you have a primary breadwinner who is, paying the mortgage or the rent, and a couple people living there. They might be living part-time or just not making enough to pay all the rent. And when that person passes away, or there's a divorce, or something happens to that person, everybody else in the household has no place to go but the streets. And that's the reality of homelessness. So I'm going to read a few comments here and see what y'all saying. Lindsay says, have to come to my town, San Diego, sir. We have a big homeless population. You do, and you have Michael McConnell is a homeless advocate, San Diego, homeless SD, I think is Twitter, and he is trying to advocating against the criminalization. I would love to visit San Diego again. Sadly, I don't really have travel funds. How Invisible People works, because there's not even enough money to hire me, is like this last videos in Winnipeg were because I worked a conference in Canada. The last videos in Philadelphia is because I was paid by a college to produce a video for them. The video at the Santa Ana River Trail was because a TV show hired me to work on their TV show, and I did this on the side. So hopefully I'll be able to get there. Yeah, Charlie, next time. So Charlie is connected, living in a tent, living homeless in Pasadena. And I'm going to, in the next couple months, Charlie, come visit you. Come visit all of you. For a lot of different reasons. But the night we met in Chinatown and had dinner, which was wonderful. I got to tell you guys, so most of our conversations are private. What happened several years ago when I started Invisible People, and Anne Marie was the first. Anne Marie, she goes by @PadChicago on Twitter, contacted me. I was like, homeless people on Twitter? Oh my gosh, I gotta connect with her. And then, here she's going to bed in an alley in Chicago saying I'm tweeting. And, she's saying I'm not alone because I got all of you on Twitter. And I saw what social media does for isolation. So over the years, I started buying homeless people, remember iPod Touches, and then tablets now, trying whenever I can and connecting people. So then we started an online support group for homeless people. And we all met about 3 weeks ago, I think it was, Charlie, at a restaurant in Chinatown in Los Angeles. And oh my gosh, what a colorful group of people. And we're all talking homelessness. And it's a fancy restaurant. It was a highlight of, one of my favorite moments of my adult life. So Tommy says, I make $9.50 a month on SSI, no affordable housing. And that doesn't give you much to live. Hey, Austin, yeah, I know Lancaster shut down the one homeless shelter that's there. What are you guys doing? I have no idea what's going on in Lancaster. I know it's part of LA County. A lot of people go there because housing. My ex-wife is in Lancaster, I believe. So I do know Lancaster a little bit. But, oh my gosh, because Lancaster, it gets really cold in the winter and really hot during the summer. So people outside, it's dangerous. Annie, thank you. This is the first, I've done a couple of tests, but this is the first one that I've plan on saving and leaving up, and hopefully we'll do many more, especially now that the encouragement. And I started off with my story and I went all over the place and I was nervous. Tommy, I love you, but you're on fixed income, so stop donating. Please, gosh, oh my gosh, you're going to break my heart. If I don't pronounce names right, please forgive me. The indie space. I'm homeless for 17 years now, seeking to leave the USA and Eastern Europe. We have an online support group, the indie space for homeless people. If you'd like to, if you go to wearevisible.com, it's on Facebook, you can find it. It's just for homeless people. So those of you that are watching this and you're not homeless, please don't go to the link in the group. It's just for homeless and formerly homeless people. I know of a trucking school in Canton, Michigan that's looking for women drivers, starts it, but the school itself must be expensive. You know what? You're right, but and it's something right now. But 5 to 10 years, trucks are going to drive themselves. Really, I'll tell you what I believe is going to happen. So we are going to have more homelessness. We're going to, mostly because of automation, mostly because of the affordable housing crisis. I gotta stop for a second. So people talk about ending homelessness. You hear a lot about we've ended homelessness. And I get it. I like to say I'm working to end homelessness myself. And, in theory, what they're trying to do is, let's say we have 100 homeless veterans on the streets. Well, now we have 100 units for them to move in. Now, not all the veterans are inside, but we have this enough for them. And they call it functional zero. The problem with functional zero is there's going to be a serious lack of affordable housing that's going to continue. If we do not do something about the affordable housing crisis in this country, we're never going to end homelessness, and poverty is going to continue. So where I was saying, is that cost of housing is going to increase. Jobs are going to go away because of automation. I mean, Associated Press is now using robots. The pharmacists are one of the first that are going to be automated. In my profession, marketing, they say only the poor soul that has to go to the meetings will still have a job. I mean, from graphic design to strategy. So high-end to low-end jobs are going to disappear in the next 5 to 10 years. The government and support for homeless people or for poverty or for social services is going to decrease. The reason we have the massive homelessness now is Reagan, and I'm not going to get political here, but Reagan in the 80s cut $15 billion of funding, and now President Trump wants to cut another $7 billion, and with the disasters that happened, the 3 hurricanes, he's going to have to cut someplace. I believe they're going to cut more in, support for social services. It's pretty scary. So what I believe is going to happen is the faith-based community, and I'm not just talking churches, temples and mosques and churches are going to have to step up. And, they're going to really have to step up to take care of our neighbors. They're not going to focus on a Sunday morning or a Saturday, or they're going to have to focus on people instead of building these buildings and having this weekly event that brings people together. They're going to have to take care of the people around that building. I'm a glass half full thinker, but it's the only thing I see happening that is going to really help. So, good, Annie. I'm glad you're not homeless. Yes, Indie Space. Please find us on wearevisible.com. I see Jesus Saves. Hi, Jesus Saves. You're connecting with Charlie, it looks like. Charlie is... Jesus Saves Church. Okay, I gotta talk. The American Evangelical Church could end homelessness tomorrow if it wanted to. I'll just leave that there. Hey Tanner, thanks for the kind words. Asylum, I don't know if you're trolling or just being ornery, but the get a job is the most frustrating comment that comes from people, because it's not how you end homelessness. It's not. So where are you guys all from? Where are you all chatting with me from? High Life 101. There are. You know what? Let me... I'm going to put a video here. Hey, Steve. I'm going to be in New York City next week. Columbus, Ohio. I used to live in Columbus for a couple years. You can boot people from the chat. I know that, Michael. The Asylum just said get a job, and that's... I like to leave open conversation. If it's going to be nasty or like this person just wrote, then... Yep. As soon as you said you can, block people, I had to block somebody. Let's see, we got Carmichael, California, Victoria, BC. William, that's one of my favorite places. Costa Rica, wow. Southeastern North Carolina, get a job, tell that to the landlord. Hey, there's a, you know what, I should have put it in the, I should have put it in my screens here to show you. There's a cartoon that somebody shared that, shows like a guy in a suit walking by a homeless man, and he yells to the homeless man, get a job, and then it shows the homeless man trying to apply for a job, and the guy with the suit saying, get lost. So San Antonio is an interesting place because you have the Haven for Hope. So that's one city that, oh my gosh, and you probably know more than me, Jesus saves. I haven't been there for a long time. So I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right. Sonora Sandwich, interesting name. How long are you in Asia for? So let me ask you, as we, I'm really trying to find a format for this show. What topics or how, right now I think, just grabbing different things to talk about, current events, and discussing them with you all, I think would be a great format. But I'm open to your suggestions. Hey, Life 101, I am going to do that actually as we go on. Hey, Joe. Joe's asking about what brought me to London. So, my first trip to London was funded by my stepsister, who now passed, and my mom. And they supported me flying over. And the reason behind that was, I know here in the States, often I'll go into a city and, people in homeless services don't like having the voice of homeless people amplified, rough sleepers. And, even though we kind of speak the same English, there's big cultural differences. So I felt it best that I self-fund my first trip. And it was amazing. It was wonderful. And I got to meet some great people. So then a few nonprofits brought me over before the Olympics because they wanted to show how they were pushing people around. And then after the Olympics, they wanted to show how it affected people on the streets. I've also been to the UK a couple of times helping to train NGOs. And again, most of Invisible People travel is paid for by somebody else. Somebody hires me to go travel, and then I, walk down the streets, hand out socks, or, hand out hand warmers this time of year. I walk down the Strand. I don't know where you are in the UK, but I usually visit around the Strand. There's also a dear friend of mine who runs a homeless service in Chippenham that I totally adore and would love to get back to. From New Zealand, wow, thank you, John. Yeah, that's the, just letting you guys know, the Invisible People, I'm trying to change it. That would probably make a good show. I'll show you all the new website coming up. I can't do it today because I don't have it queued up. But I'm trying to change it where it's not just me, but content, focused on regular people, like how to talk to your kids about homelessness, but still have the Invisible People videos connected. It's really exciting. Hopefully, we'll get resources to really grow it. Peter asks if there's a city that has done the best. It's really, that's a hard question to answer because 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I could have told you this city, that city. And now those cities are back in crisis. There was a news article today, and I should have talked about that, how Houston has gotten a huge amount of people off the streets, which with the hurricane that just hit, that's great. And the thing is, they're providing housing. I'll say it like this, Peter. There's, because people ask me how homelessness changes when I travel. And, obviously somebody living in Anchorage, Alaska is going to live differently than Tampa, Florida. The other thing that changes is the drug of choice. And that's not necessarily, it's driven by supply and demand. For instance, in rural Alaska, alcohol is much more common. Rural Ohio, it's opioids and heroin and OxyContin. The destruction of drugs is the same everywhere. What's different is, in any community, is the community decides one of two things. They either bulldoze homelessness, push it out of sight. It's often literally, like, what's happening in Orange County. You have 500, 600 people tomorrow that are going to have no place to go. Or like in Los Angeles, where, they have a very serious crisis, but they're working together. You have Home for Good, which I love, is getting the faith-based community, the businesses, the nonprofits, and the government all working together and to end homelessness. Now, they passed a couple of measures that is going to give some funding. They have a huge mountain to climb. So I put a link earlier to a Housing First video. I think Housing First is a model that more people need to implement in their community. The problem is housing, and it has to be done right. You just can't put people in a box. That's one of the reasons I'm not a big supporter of tiny homes. It's just a box. You still have to help them, and there has to be some community. Wow, Alaska has a 2-year waiting list. I know in Los Angeles, Charlie can probably talk about this more better than I can, is in Los Angeles, they just opened up the Section 8 again, which is crazy, after being shut down. And I think they only opened it up for a little bit of time. Hey, Infinity Rose, you're in a Key Club and you'd love to do something. We're in Maine. Maine is a wonderful place. I don't know what city you're in. So this is what I tell people, is that look at your community and find who's ending homelessness, not who's maintaining homelessness. There's people that maintain homelessness. It's a wonderful business and it's an industry. They just maintain, people come in, people go out, people come in, people go out, and it's an industry. But there's organizations that end homelessness. So find those organizations and support them. Now, those organizations don't always give the feel-good moments, you know what I mean? Like a sandwich is not going to end homelessness. But, things like advocating for affordable housing, because if you're in Maine, and I don't know if you're rural or in one of the big cities, cost of living and rent is just going crazy. I would imagine. I know I live in Syracuse right now, and it's crazy, just insane crazy. I think Charlie asked about Salt Lake City. So Salt Lake City is interesting. So Little history. Salt Lake City brought me in 2010. As one of my first signs that I thought I knew I was up to something good. I mean, when a state government asks you to visit, you know, chances are you're doing something good. So Lloyd Pendleton, he was an amazing, most kind, loving man. He was the champion and brought housing first to the Salt Lake City community and throughout Utah. Since Lloyd has stepped down and retired, it's like letting, somebody referred to it as letting the animals out of the zoo. There's nobody there to control everything or to guide. I don't want to say control, to guide. So now there's, oh my gosh, there's just, you know, going back to criminalization, and they have some really stupid models, and they've gone backwards instead of forwards. They were, you know, the city that everybody looked at about ending homelessness, and now they've gone so far backwards. Yeah, Charlie, I don't know. Do you do the cold weather? Oh, you do. Is it, that's on Lake Avenue, if I remember, in Pasadena, but it's only like activated when it gets below a certain cold weather. Hopefully that's changed because Los Angeles County's got some more money. Guys, if I love that you're asking about your local communities. It would be a big help if you educate me about what's going on. Hey, life, yeah, I could just stay in one city, but like, you know, I learned for instance, if I had the money right now, I would get on a plane and go to Anaheim to help tell the story of these people being evicted. Plain and simple. Well, I don't, Electric 1000, I agree we're all equal. Being homeless is not a matter of chance. I don't agree with that, but I do agree, and please don't tell anybody, I love homeless people. If I was giving a choice to sit in a boardroom with a bunch of executives or a street curb with a bunch of homeless people, I would hang out with homeless people. And the reason is tolerance. So in the boardroom, you have a bunch of people that are just, you know, judging everybody and they're money driven. But when you're with homeless people, you'll have, you know, transgender, and you'll have mental illness, and you'll have addiction and disabilities. And although it's, you know, not always, you know, the most loving, it is the most understanding and the most tolerant community that I've ever been in. And I just love that. I just love how people just, you know, accept other homeless people for who they are. And yeah, there's bad apples everywhere. And then, you know, so. Hey, Zofan asked, can time banks help the poor? So it's interesting. I don't hear that a lot, but in hostels, for those of you that are not familiar with UK, their shelters are called hostels. To me, hostels are where kids backpack, but in the UK, they're called hostels. And I've seen time banks, which are people exchange time. Like, let's say I can do video and somebody does taxes, and we exchange time for skills. And I've seen them in hostels being used very effectively. Really awesome. I agree. Charlie says that he feels homelessness is more of a life event than a paycheck away anymore. So anybody have any ideas about how, you know, I believe that all of you that, let me see, gosh, I didn't even check on this. There's 41 people watching, so I assume that many of you already have compassion for homeless people. So do you have any ideas on how we can help educate the people around us about homelessness? And I think I clicked on the wrong thing. I have what I call triple ADHD, so I have like way too many windows open. And yep, that's what happened. Cool, cool, cool. And I am back. I can see the chat, and you guys are all there. I don't know about how you connect to people or how to connect to Section 8. I have been out of Los Angeles and California for about 4 years. Cool. So, hey everybody, we've gone about an hour. And I am just overjoyed that y'all hung out with me for this long. I can go for a little while longer if you guys like. Hey John, thank you for that. John says he shares the videos on Facebook. One thing I've done this year is I've really put more effort into YouTube. And you guys are a community and you're awesome. And there's a community on Facebook too. So all the videos on Invisible People are also on Facebook. It's just delayed a little bit. I put them on YouTube first. But they're also all on Facebook. Try to cross all the different channels. Also Instagram, videos aren't on, but when I'm traveling now, I'm trying to do Instagram stories to more real life bring people in. Hey Valerie, thank you for your kind words. That's the whole point of this. And if you're in Austin, one of my favorite places is Mobile Loaves and Fishes, Alan Graham. And they have I said it earlier, I'm not a big fan of tiny homes. Just because people just want to put people in boxes. They forget they need support and community. Well, in Austin, there's a community called Community First. You know, it's not housing first, it's community first. And it's really, really awesome. And then Lisa is from Ontario, Canada. Hi! I don't know what city, but I love Canada. I will be in Montreal on the 13th until the 19th of November. What's really, really cool about what's happening in Montreal is I'm part of an international group of art, music people, and we're all convening in Montreal to help bring art and music to the homeless community. Hey Wendy, you're talking about Katie, and she does love Subway cookies. And interesting enough, Katie got a bunch of money from me, and she bought Subway cookies. And the next day, she got a bunch of money from me, and she bought Subway cookies. And I know this because I saw her. She, after I gave her, a $20 bill, she went and grabbed Subway cookies. But the interesting thing, and that I started this off with, is Katie, nobody even knew she existed. And you guys did because you started asking about Subway cookies. But now there's a group of people that are working to help get her off the streets. So hopefully in a week or two she'll be off the streets. And Valerie, please ask a question. That's what I'm here for. Sure. I'll see if I can find it. Oh, I got 2 live chats going. That's why I was having problems. If you give me a second, I will... Give me a second. So... This is a link to the whole art program in there, and the one that With One Voice is the international art program. It was actually, somebody earlier asked about my trips to the UK. My first trip to the UK was before the Olympics, and there was streetwise opera, homeless people singing opera to open the Olympics. And somebody on Twitter invited me, connected with them. Streetwise Opera started this thing called With One Voice, just totally amazing. So Valerie wanted to ask a question. I don't want to miss it when it comes up. Well, is it Carlisle? You know, a lot of homeless people don't like shelters because shelters suck. Has nothing to do with mental illness. And I usually say it like this. And please, there's some good shelters. I've worked at a good shelter in Glendale. There's some good shelters. And if they're used as a bridge to keep people from the streets into housing, very important in a system to get people off the streets. But the interesting thing is, and I say it like this, no homeless person ever said, put me in a cot in a room with 100 other men, give us 2 bathroom stalls, make us stand in line for dinner, make us stand in line for the bathroom, and then, you know, I mean, I gotta tell you, snoring in a homeless shelter is horrible. And I snore, so I'm a guilty person. But then they kick you out in the morning. You know, I was reading, somebody was complaining about Housing First. I posted on it. It was somebody that works at a homeless program. And then I was reading up, they bring families in and then they kick them out outside every morning. It's not how you treat people. That's not how you help them. It's just horrible. Shalom from Wyoming. So Valerie, gosh, that's a tough question, and it's interesting because one of the homeless women that I work with lives in a tent, or that I shouldn't say I work with. It's part of our online support group I'm trying to help. Lives in a tent in Seattle. She has head trauma, can't work, and mental health has a 3-month voucher for her. Who's going to sign a 3-month voucher? I mean, who's going to rent an apartment just for 3 months? Landlords don't do that. And it just shows how broken and disjointed homelessness is. I don't know about having to sign a lease. That's just common. Having to sign it can protect you. I know I've had problems with landlords, and it works both ways. A lease isn't a bad thing. The issue is, especially in Los Angeles now, in city San Francisco, is, you know, they're asking so much rent, or let's say if you're not in a rent-controlled apartment and the landlord thinks that he can get XXX amount more, they're going to find a way to get you out so that they can raise the rent and get somebody else in there. So I think the rent, the cost of rent is point blank the biggest issue in or cause of homelessness is lack of affordable housing. The lease is, something. So as far as freelance, that's how I pay my rent and how I buy my food, and I freak out. Like right now, I don't have any gigs coming up at all, period, nothing. And I just worked crazy a couple of months. And so I have rent for two months, but after that I don't have any rent. And it's scary, but I'm trying to build invisible people. So when I go freelance, it takes away from visible people. And now for the next 2 months, I'm really trying to get up a brand new invisible people that I think you're all going to love. I get it, because you'll I don't know what city you're in, Valerie, but you'll find somebody. You'll find, it's tough. It's tough finding. I think that's what keeps me from moving, is having to look for a new apartment. But on those lines, as a senior, because I don't have savings or anything, chances of me ending up homelessness again is very real. Hey, Josh. Josh asks how many, he's from Seattle, and how many people you meet are homeless because they can't function and grind a society. That's a hard question to answer. There's, anxiety, mental illness, PTSD. There's a lot of different things that, I sometimes have problems with society and demanding jobs. I'm going to spin it a little bit. I mean, we're getting busy. I mean, busy is now a status symbol. You ask everybody, how you doing? I'm busy. How you doing? I'm busy. How you doing? I'm busy. And even nonprofits, and, they're, laying people off and demanding people do more work, and it's really hard to make it anymore. The cause of people not being able to fit in society as a cause of homelessness, which I think you're asking, is not really big in that aspect. The lack of affordable a living wage to be able to afford an apartment is. Hopefully that answers your question. And I love Seattle, by the way. Thank you, Valerie. And and Charlie says in Pasadena, your income must be twice the amount what rent is. And I know when I lived in Pasadena, I rented a 1-bedroom for $1,200, which is cheap in Los Angeles. That's dirt cheap in Los Angeles. When I went back, and I've been gone 3 years, that same apartment is now $1,700. So it went up $500. And it was not the nicest apartment. It was, what I could afford and cheap. Love the questions, guys. Keep them coming. Hey, thank you very much for engaging in the conversation. I think it's Sonar. And hopefully you found that link for the With One Voice in Montreal. If not, at me at Hardly Normal on Twitter. How do you crash the housing market? I don't know. So, Electric 1000, I kind of go into a little bit of, sins of the father and spiritual and generational on that. And yes, so somebody asked me last night, how was it that I was able to get out of homelessness where other people weren't? And I think it's because I was raised with enough love and self-worth. I don't think anybody has a perfect upbringing. There's no such thing as a functional family, but I was given enough love and self-worth that homelessness wasn't an end stop. Lots of people just give up, and that I do agree with you is often, you know, people are conditioned. I mean, if you look at youth homelessness especially, and nobody connects youth homelessness to adult homelessness, I wish they would. But I've interviewed, now the kid was 18 when I interviewed him, but he said when he was 5 years old, he felt safer sleeping in the car than with his grandmother, who, you know, was, you know, custody of him. And since he was sleeping out in the car, then he started hanging out in the streets. He was homeless at 5 years old. Could you imagine? You know, and then there's another girl, Lexi, in Denver. She's been in over 52 placements, foster care placements. Somebody on YouTube responded. They said that, oh, she probably deserved it. She was a rotten kid. 52 placements, 52 homes from, let's say, 10 years old to 18 years old. Oh my gosh, how do you develop as a child? So yeah, that has a lot to do with it. It really does. Hey, Murderous Melon, besides having a cool handle, that should be a band name, Murderous Melon. Thank you for going out and pass out clothes and blankets. I don't know what city you're in, but maybe our paths will cross. That would be awesome. Yeah, Charlie, I think, I don't, you know, I remember my own homelessness, and even though I still can't fathom what you or anybody else that's still outside sleeping goes through. Even though I was homeless, my heart goes out to you. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I like Murderous Melon better. Murder the Melons. Well, that could be a fun stage show. It's kind of, what was the guy's name? Gallagher with the melons thing. So, yeah, I know. I can. Well, her video. She's the only Lexi in there, but I mean, some of the stories that youth have told me about their upbringing, or adults have told me about their upbringing as children, heartbreaking, just heartbreaking. It's hard to imagine that they survived through some of this stuff, and you know, it shapes who you are. Steve, that is a very good question, and it actually changed me. So the Canadian government, back 6 years ago, had me travel to 24 cities in Canada, and I was in Yellowknife, which is way up there, and I met an Indigenous homeless man, an older man, tough, like, you know, my grandfather, never show emotion, and he said he cried twice that winter because it got 60 below and he was sleeping out in a tent. And I realized that homelessness, true homelessness, is absence of choice. It's absence of choice, because nobody in their conscious mind, unless they're a research scientist getting paid to measure ice on the South Pole or North Pole, sleeps outside at 60 below. True homelessness is absence of choice. Valerie, very good question. Valerie asks, how does somebody help homeless people. She doesn't want to donate to shelters, and she doesn't feel comfortable handing out money. I would say one of the first things that you could do really is, when you're dealing with mental illness and drug addiction, normal rules don't apply, and your safety always has to come first. But you don't be rude to people, don't ignore them, and homeless people. And you can also talk to your friends in your inner circle about homelessness and say, you know, if you're walking down the street and there's a homeless person and one of the friends goes, look at that bum, they should get a job, you can say, hey, you know what? I learned the other day on this YouTube channel, you know, you could use my channel or anything else, but help educate your friends, help educate the community is a big start. Treating people with respect. You know, I'll be honest with you, there's times when I'm just really, really busy, or I don't feel safe, that I don't engage with a homeless person, you know. But most of the time, I will say, you know, how are you? You know, even when you got any change, how are you? And I also carry socks. I'm going to do a video on socks and giving out socks. I carry Hanes socks. I'm the worst person. 9 times out of 10 when I'm walking out of the street, I have a backpack full of Hanes socks. So guys, we've been going for longer than an hour. Indie space, that's true. It's so interesting to me, and why I love homeless people. There's a woman in our community, lives in a tent, and I'm trying to help her with a couple of things, and she doesn't want anything. I mean, not like she doesn't want to, like, get out of here. It's like, oh, I have everything. There's people that need it more than me. She's so wonderful and gorgeous. I mean, gosh. People are so kind. I hope you find our online support group. Hey, Mr. Blah, I love your name. Yeah, transportation is really, really big. That's something that, but that's also a personal choice. Like, for instance, for me, I used to get in trouble as a case manager because if somebody wanted a ride, I just put them in my car. I didn't, you know, and you're not supposed to do that. You know, it'd be interesting to work that up into some way of providing services at charity, because giving sandwiches is not going to end homelessness, but, you know, helping somebody with a ride, you know. Yeah, and I recommend Hanes socks. Like Bombas does socks. Love Bombas. I've been on the streets with their CEO. They're expensive. They're great socks. Hanes are also great socks, but you can go to Walmart, and for the price of one pair of Bombas that gives one pair to homeless people, you could buy 14 pairs. Like, they got these things at Walmart where there's like 2 free pairs. So you buy 12 pairs and 2 free pairs are there for the same cost, and keep 7 pairs and give 7 pairs away, you know. And they're great socks. I mean, one of the things I love to do is when I travel overseas, often, you know, like in the UK, they don't have Hanes, and, you know, people are like, oh, these are great. They're brilliant, brilliant socks. Murderous Melon, I go to Walmart. In fact, if there's a local Walmart, I'll find out when they get their socks, because I usually clean them out. when I go in, and it's like they'll get their delivery, their restock every Tuesday. If I'm going to be in that area for a while, I'll find out, because I usually walk out with all the socks. Amanda, you have somebody in Pittsburgh called, a friend of mine, Dr. Jim Withers, who does house calls. I haven't been to Pittsburgh in a while, but it's a 4-hour drive, and I really want to soon. Hi, Valerie. I don't know what city you're in. Right now, I don't have a vehicle to really take suggestions, but I'm always open to them. And again, each city is different. So if you have ideas, if you're on social media, obviously you're on YouTube, make a video about your idea and share it. Oh, Michael, they axed the poetry section. Wow, was it poetry written by people still on the streets, homeless? Yeah, Steve, automation, I was talking about that earlier. Automation is going to be a serious job killer. Hey, Lisa, yeah, in Ontario, that is really cool. I know in Los Angeles, I think it was Lyft tried to work out one of the deals with one of the homeless shelters. I know I was a family case manager in Los Angeles, outreach case manager. I'm divorced, no goldfish. I don't have any kids. That's my funny way of saying no kids, good, no goldfish. And for whatever reason, they had me work with families and kids. And I called myself the soccer mom for the homeless, because all day that's what we did, was help people with errands. It's a huge need. Anthony, it's interesting. So if 5,000 might help them get off the streets into an apartment, but then they need rent, and they need some kind of quality of life, and they need community. It's not just putting people into boxes. You've got to have some kind of tangible social interaction. You've got to have, purpose, a reason to get up in the morning. And, there's a gentleman I interviewed in Seattle who lives in his van because he's on a fixed income. He's older, and he says, if I could spend all my money on rent, or I can live in my van and have enough money to go to the movies once in a while. So 5,000 is not a real lot to help people get off the streets. Now, saying that, I've heard, reports that $5 billion could end homelessness in a major city like New York or Los Angeles if there was that influx. And that does seem like a lot of money, but this Halloween, people spent $9 billion on costumes. And I'm not one of those people that say, look at, they spent all that money over there, look at over here. I'm just trying to put it in perspective. Hi, Australian version Taiwanese water. You're going to have to explain that name. So my background is marketing, not education, and I'm trying to find people that have more of an education background, and we're trying to create more content about homelessness and ways to end it, and community solutions. We're trying to grow that. I mean, did you guys, you know what, I'll find it here really quick. I'll answer my own question. Holy schmoly, we've gone an hour and a half. Give me... Okay. And where is the chat thing? Okay, where is the chat? So here, along those lines, there's a couple people. This is an article I wrote about panhandling. Because the homeless services, they say don't give money to homeless people. And I say it depends. And even the Pope agrees with me, just give money. But, you know, I give some guidelines there. But that's the kind of educational content we want to start going. So guys, I'm going to wind my voice. Oh my gosh, my voice. I'm going to start winding this down. If you guys got any last questions or ideas on how we can make this better, I'm going to try to find a weekly time that I can do it every week, the same time. My schedule is a little crazy, so I've got to figure out one that's great. Also need to be able to do it from my laptop on the road with just web camera, so I'm not really worried about quality or anything. But I got to tell you, one thing that you've taught me as the YouTube community, and you taught me in such an amazing way from the one or two chats I did before this, is that you guys actually, there's a community behind this channel. I thought people just came and watched a video and never came back. I mean, Tommy, for example. I mean, Tommy's been at every live feed that I've had. That's amazing. Valerie, I'm sorry. My goal and intention is not to make you cry, but thank you for your kind words. So Electric 1000, I don't know where you're at. So I'd say two things. There's people, I don't know what country you're in, but there's people experiencing homelessness in your country or your city. I always tell people to donate and connect with your local homeless services that's working to end homelessness support there. It's just going to be a better connection. For every person you see on Invisible People, there's many of them in your own community. If you'd like to support our work, Patreon is a way, and there's a donation link on our page. Greatly appreciated, but you know, I do this for education, not to raise money. Oh my gosh, Thomas has been, have you been with us this whole time? So what Thomas is writing, you know what, Thomas, I think I should come to Ithaca and do an interview. But you came back. That's amazing. So again, what I was talking earlier is, you know, for probably the first couple of years of Invisible People, I was just posting on YouTube. I wasn't engaging the community like I am here. And I think you guys are all wonderful and gorgeous, and you've helped you know, Patreon, we're now growing to the point that I believe in a few months I might even be able to do this full time. And you guys are all sharing, and you're liking the videos, and you're talking about them, and it's, oh my gosh, it's amazing. There's a community. And Thomas dared me, so We're going to have to do one of these live streams from Ithaca or get them up here. You know what? I got to go down, Ithaca, the jungle. There's a tent city and people living out in the snow. I'm going to come down. Plus, you got the good pho place. Yeah, Charlie, it's funny. When I was a wise-ass kid, I used to run around panhandling. I wasn't even homeless, but I would panhandle and get money for booze. And then, as a homeless person, it's so dehumanizing, and people don't think of that. You have this wrong, wrong messaging where people believe, oh gosh, they make hundreds of dollars, and they don't see that coffee gets spilled on them. They're called names, and it's just horrible. Hey, Grab, if you're homeless, we have an online support group. You can find it at wearevisible.com. It's just for homeless and formerly homeless people. So if you're seeing this on YouTube and you're not homeless or formerly homeless, please, it's just for homeless and formerly homeless people. But if you are homeless or formerly homeless, we would love to have you join our community. Charlie is part of our community. Hey, John from El Paso. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Adam. Well, anyways, I am going to, gosh, I can't even talk. Notice I started this thing all hyper. I couldn't even tell my own story, which was by request. And now, I can't talk, and I'm, relaxed, settled in. So we'll figure out more of a flow as the show goes on. But I think, and we can repair and adjust and, change the format as we go on. But I'm going to try picking some topics that are current of what's going on. So I don't know if you're the praying type of whatever religion or spirituality, but I know there's 500 plus people in the tent city in Anaheim, and that are probably going to lose their place tomorrow, if not tomorrow, really soon. Charlie is on this chat. He's going to bed in Pasadena tonight, out on the streets. There's a lot of homeless brothers and sisters all over this country. So I ask you, send some warm thoughts and love to all the people out on the streets. And thank you all so very much for joining me this evening. And we'll continue making these live streams awesome.